Today's discussion is going to focus on tax credits that are available for companies and sales reps to improve businesses through their products. So let me explain how that works. Likewise, if you haven't had a chance to listen to our government referral partner training, I would definitely recommend that. It's different from what today's strategy is, but there's a lot of good nuggets there in a related topic. Now, there's a specific type of tax credit known as the R&D tax credit. It's also known as the Research and Experiment Tax Credit. But there's a few different caveats and conditions for this tax credit. So we're going to talk about how to use this, but you don't necessarily have to be an expert on this, and we'll talk about that later. But essentially what you're trying to do, and this is probably, if you're in sales, this is what you're doing already, but you're trying to improve the functionality, the performance, the reliability, the quality of the product or process, software, techniques used by your prospects. And chances are, like I said before, you're already in this process of trying to improve the business in one way or another. It also applies to technology uncertainty. So if your client has questions about developing new products or services or exploring new processes, this can be done through experimentation. So you're trying to figure out what is the best way to work, what is the best way to service our customers, how can we eliminate some uncertainties in terms of doing a trial and error. And the last requirement here, it needs to be technological in nature. So it can't be something about arts or feelings. It needs to be some type of a hard science. So a few examples. Again, you'll need to consult with an accounting firm to really design this properly. But every day we're selling products and services. And so if we can layer on some type of an experiment with these, it will qualify for tax credits. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the other conditions and things we want to avoid. But if you're looking at companies and saying, let's look at working from home versus office, that's the technique approach. Or how does SD-WAN impact a company's performance, which is part of that performance clause. Software integrations, again, performance, contact center solutions. There's a lot of different technologies and methodologies there. Asset tracking, fleet management, everything related to IoT. That's definitely looking at process and performance. Better servers. So if your clients can have access to your services more readily, it would certainly improve the quality of the product. Just think of Google and how they work really hard to get your results faster. That goes directly to servers and performance and reliability. Disaster recovery, also making sure that your product is available all the time. There's a lot of different industries that would definitely receive a lot of benefits from that. Bandwidth, likewise, if your company is underperforming because you don't have good bandwidth or good smart bandwidth, then that would be an area that you can look at. IT security, obviously reliability there. You can't necessarily provide a good service if you're worried about that. Text-enabled DIDs, there's unlimited products and services and solutions that you can come up with that would apply for these types of tax credits. These are just a few examples to think about that. But again, we're trying to improve the performance of these companies. And so if you're in the sales business and you're not focused on improving that, then you really need to go back to the drawing board. Now, one of the questions that oftentimes comes up, both from the sales side and from the prospect side, is, what if this fails? What if it doesn't work? Am I on the hook for all this investment? And the government's answer is no. Doesn't matter if you succeed or not. As long as you try, they're going to take the money that you invested in attempting these experiments and in doing the research, and they're going to help pay for that. And so it helps. A lot of times, one of the biggest hurdles that we face in sales is, I'm afraid of change because I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know what's going to happen. But if the government is going to help fund this attempt at something new, it helps take away that major roadblock. So there's a lot of areas that don't apply, and this isn't a comprehensive list, but this will kind of give you an idea of a few things to avoid. The research needs to be done here in the U.S., so you can't outsource this to something over the seas. It needs to be based in the United States. Also, anything related to existing solutions usually isn't covered by this. So if you're trying to do a quality control of existing components, that doesn't work, or just general market research, consumer preference testing, or if you're doing research funded by an unrelated third party. So if this is just kind of something that's not necessarily directly related to your company, providing training to your existing employees, maintaining or repairing existing equipment, basically working with existing products or solutions, getting ready for production for something that already exists, doing trial products runs, troubleshooting. There's quite a few different things. Again, anything related to the arts or humanities doesn't apply, social sciences. Performing research on something that's already existing or adapting existing components. It needs to be something that's new, something that's going to make a big impact on the company. And again, it doesn't have to be successful, but it needs to be something different from what's already taking place today. And that's essentially what the government's looking for. So who qualifies for this? Does it have to be a specific type of company? Really, it can be any company. It's primarily designed for companies that pay federal taxes. Startups who don't have a lot of revenue can still qualify. It's just a little bit more limited for them. They can apply for up to $250,000 a year in payroll taxes, but they can only do so in 5 separate taxable years, if that makes sense. So what does this actually pay for? It pays for employees' wages. So if you paid somebody who is supervising or executing these experiments and tests, this credit would pay for their wages. It also covers the cost of supplies. So the cost of renting facilities, buying equipment, anything that you use in the experiment would be covered by this credit. It also covers 65 or up to 100% of the contract research expenses. So if you're contracting out to somebody to help implement these strategies and experiments, it would also cover their costs as well. And then another huge thing is there's a special clause within this taxable credit specifically for cloud computing. And so this is a huge opportunity for sales reps in the cloud computing space, where a lot of times there's going to be a lot of computational analysis. And so you're going to need to be able to pay for that. And so those servers in those cloud solutions will be covered by this tax credit. So how do you claim this? Well, you just need to document everything that you're doing. Make sure that you have everything that's detailed and have everything in line, because most companies get audited at some point. And so if you have this documentation in place, you'll be fine. But the main thing that you want to do is you need to hire an expert. It's worthwhile. Again, this is all part of the process, but having an accounting firm, if they have somebody in-house that feels comfortable doing that, that's fine. But you really need to have an accountant that understands the tax credit to help you implement it. It's not something you just want to hope and cross your fingers that you figured it out. That's why we have accountants, because they understand this and they can handle this. And so work with the different accountants, get involved with them, try to find somebody that understands how to apply, how to document. And as long as you have them on your team, it shouldn't be very hard to help justify all of the different experiments and products and services that you're trying to implement. Now, we did a training a while back. It would be worthwhile to review, which specifically talks about experiments. Most of what we're going to be doing is going to be based off of experiments in terms of how do the products and services that we sell improve the performance and the reliability of the companies that we're selling to. So review that. There's some good nuggets in there. But just imagine the impact if you found an experiment that was not only qualified for these tax credits, but also helped improve the performance. How much easier would it be to sell that product and service to other companies in that same space? I mean, talk about shooting fish in a barrel. This is something that would be so much easier from your perspective in terms of opening doors and having conversations with folks. Now, there was a survey done a little while back about companies and asking them why they're not using these credits. And the number one response was they're just not doing anything that's groundbreaking. They don't have an excuse or anything. They can't think of an idea that they can experiment with. So if you can come up with something and say, let's give this a try. I'll run the experiment. I'm going to bring in an accountant. I'm going to manage everything. You can charge them, because that's part of the process here is the credit applies to third parties that are helping them. But if you can help them with this and charge them for that and get involved, this is something that would solve a lot of problems for them. And it takes away the risk, because not only is experimentation less risky than buying a product, because it's something that the label of experimentation means that it's okay to fail, but the government still pays for the experimentation even if it does fail. So as kind of an example, imagine that you're trying to sell to companies that use HubSpot. But what you want to do is you want to run an experiment to see what kind of impact would it have on the company if we were to connect their HubSpot CRM and platform to their contact center solution. So if you go to sable.com/data, the first part we want to do is we want to find a few accounting firms, because we don't want to go this alone. Again, the most important component to any sales strategy is a lead exchange. A lead exchange is an advanced form of referral partners where together you go and do customer acquisitions together. So you basically take a list of 500 and split it up between each team member. And so this particular strategy is going to need a few members, and you want to find members that can help and complement what you're trying to do. And so in this particular case, this is a perfect opportunity to work with accounting firms. Now think about accounting firms. These are companies that are outsourcing their accounting. These are companies that are used to using other sources to help accomplish their business goals. And so these are also great candidates for managed services as well. If you haven't formed a lead exchange, go to leadexchange.org. You can set up a group or join an existing group. And a few of the members that you're going to want to involve in this project, again, accounting firms, because they can understand and navigate that piece and make sure that that taxable credit is available and that the company feels comfortable going forward with this. It would also be helpful to work with a business consultant. They can help look at come up with the overall plan, help you take some of that burden off of your shoulders. There's probably going to be some custom development as well. You can work with a software developer, work with HubSpot reps, data center reps. Again, cloud computing is definitely covered by this tax credit, and commercial insurance reps. The reason why we have them in this list is because disaster recovery, there's a specific insurance called business continuity where companies can get paid when their businesses are affected by some type of a natural disaster. So creating a more reliable product via disaster recovery also complements that insurance and helps lower premiums. So these are some of the members that you want to consider adding to your lead exchange because it'll make this whole process a lot easier. In this case, we have 6 members, and so if each of these are spending 2 hours a day prospecting, that's 12 hours of prospecting. And so when it comes to prospecting, you're going to need a list. There's lots of different ways that we can talk about this. We have a whole playlist of list ideas. In this case, we're just going to go straight for the easiest process. So if you go to Ensaple.com/data, go to the technology section, select HubSpot. But then also, I tend to prefer to work with companies who are struggling because they're more open to new ideas. And so I like to add filters like companies who are doing layoffs, restructuring, or experiencing a downturn. So if you go to the business filter section and add that to the list filters, you'll be able to find a list of companies who use HubSpot, but who are also experiencing some challenges internally, especially with layoffs and restructuring. They're going to try to find ways to do the same amount of output with less people. And so that's one of the areas that it's going to be easier to talk to them about experimenting, especially with the tax credits. They would be more open. And so a lot of companies, they either focus on companies that are growing or companies that are shrinking. But I believe that working with companies that are shrinking are going to have a better return rate for anyone that's in the sales space. So when I send out our emails, so if the 6 members of the lead exchange, they're going to be sending out their emails for 2 hours a day, working with this list, following up, connecting with people on LinkedIn, and sending out follow-up emails. But this initial email will look something like this. Chances are I'm going to send this either to someone in operations, someone in the C-suite, someone that's in finance, or all of the above. It definitely makes an impact if you can copy someone on the email. You'll see a much higher return rate. But the subject line is going to say tax credit. And then you're going to say something like this: has your business taken advantage of the R&D tax credit? So a lot of companies haven't, right? There's a lot of companies who don't know, they're not aware of it, or they don't know how to use it. I was wondering if we could run an experiment with your company that could find new ROI and would be financed through the R&D tax credit. So this is something that says, you know what? It's an experiment. It can do ROI. It's free. It's paid for a tax credit. It's worthwhile to at least understand what this is all about. So before you actually get on the call and before you even write an email, you want to make sure that you have an experiment outlined. You talk to your lead exchange group and figure out what that experiment's going to be, and then you start engaging with the clients and talking to them. So that's everything for today.